This podcast is proudly brought to you by Ravine Purified Water. Rethink your lifestyle.
Greetings, Africa. Welcome to JailBreak Africa. My name is Jeremy Zungu, the chartered vendor. This is a show where we talk about business. We talk about what is happening in Africa. We talk about the businesses, our resources, farming, mining. Why is that Africa has got a lot of resources, but Africans, we are still poor. We still survive on donor funds. We still depend so much on Kariba, the Southern Africa. You notice that South Africa doesn't have electricity. Zambia is now moved to 12 hours blackout per day. So in discussing all these issues, I'm joined by Mr. Andrew Macheka. He's actually the managing partner of M&J Consultants. And we promise that we'll be also giving you business advisory. So today we just want to talk about, why do you think we are where we are as Africans, Mr. Andrew?
A lot of reasons are there, Mr. Jerry.
Yeah.
You find that there is poor planning.
Exactly.
Yes, poor planning, it actually affects a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because if you look at businesses of today, sometimes we just do things randomly.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some companies whereby they've actually grown, but they don't realize how they've gone to such a level.
Mm.
But end up, when they are such at a high level, they end up facing challenges of failing to manage growth.
Mm.
So poor planning is actually one of the reasons.
But before we even go to poor planning, or before we even mention companies,
Yes.
let us first probably talk about us as a continent. Where do we think, on your own opinion, because this is JailBreak Africa, and what you want is to emancipate the minds of the Africans to say, where are we really missing it as Africa? Is it because as much as we can say it's colonization, as much as we can say it's because they can actually claim that probably we are on sanctions, but why do you think that we've got a lot of resources, we've got a lot of potential, but we remain being upcoming in terms of creating better economies? You look at how we are suffering as Africans. Or what's your comment in terms of probably having long hours? Most of the countries don't even have electricity. So planning, is it starting from the nation level, continent level, or AU, getting back into Zimbabwe, Zambia, South Africa? Is it starting with the country itself, or is it starting with the companies? Because before we even start touching on the companies, what about if we start address about the whole of Africa, the nations which are in Africa, getting back to our communities, our government? How do we operate? Do we plan? What's the working culture in our governments? What is the working culture in our city councils? What is the working culture in our organization, churches? Do we have that kind of working culture which is in the West?
No, we don't. Actually, in Africa, we are more reluctant.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at it, there are some countries, I'll mention just like Rwanda, they are doing very well. But you find that it's just 2 or 3 countries which are, if you were doing very well in Africa. So what you need to change our mindset. Because we can actually create our own economy, which is better, like what other countries are doing. But then now, if we have that mindset that, okay, we need to rely on the West, the Americans, then we'll always be behind. But we also need to change our mindset in the way that we do our things. That way it can actually help us.
Okay, great. So when you're looking at countries like Rwanda, you look at the progress which they're making. Why do you think they're making such a progress? I think Rwanda is a country which was born probably in 1993, thereabouts. That's when they created a unified Rwanda with a president. All these years, it's all about rebels. There was always wars in Rwanda. I think their war actually ended in 1923, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
But why is it Rwanda is now far away than even most? They've actually achieved a lot than the companies which attained independence in 1963, 1980s. What's in it in Rwanda? Is it because of the tough rule of President Paul Kagame? Is it because of the companies which are getting there? What is the difference?
I think it's because of how they implemented their policies. It's more of implementation, because sometimes all countries, they do plan, but when it comes to the implementation
What
part,
are blueprints?
yes, when it comes to the implementation part, it will be a challenge even in terms of others.
Okay.
So in Zambia, in Rwanda, they do implement, and they make sure that everything is followed
Okay.
as per their plan.
That's
But you find that, yes, in other countries, it's a challenge, because there will be some areas whereby people are just so reluctant in terms of doing their job. So
Okay.
if it's a collective effort, it's not a one main job.
Okay.
Because you find that the president can play a part, but he also has even the cabinet, even the parastatals, and it comes down even to the individuals.
Okay.
So it's a collective effort.
It's a collective
Everyone-
effort.
Yes.
So when I was actually moving around in Africa last week, I had an opportunity to visit Zambia in Lusaka. I noticed there's some progress, but there are also some setbacks. But when I was looking at the government itself, people will be complaining it's because of the government, it's because of all these issues, the economy is not performing. Yes, they can take the blame. But the question is, today we want to talk about why are companies failing, especially small companies. I noticed that some other companies, someone can make $1 million. Someone can actually build a lot of houses. But you notice that probably after 5 years, after 10 years, that business is starting to go down. And you as a consultant, I know that you've dealt with a lot of companies. What's your assessment on that? Let us actually draw on why are these companies failing?
Okay. I'll mention non-compliance issues.
Non-compliance?
Yes, because you find that a lot of companies, we don't like to pay tax.
Exactly.
Yes. So you take advantage whilst you're small, you're growing. And by the time maybe you reach your 5-10 years, it will follow you. You find now Zimra is now on your neck. So it's most people, they think that maybe if you are compliant, you're paying a lot of taxes. But you just need to make sure that you are in line with the law, such that you're not affected. So it's one of the reasons that affects small businesses. And also another thing is poor record keeping.
Okay.
Yeah, this one is one of the major one, because I actually have a client who doesn't know about the balance sheet, but they've been operating for like 8 years.
Okay.
They've been in the business, but they've been just doing the profit and loss. But if you ask them about the asset register, it's not there. They don't know about.
So they don't even account their assets.
They don't even account. Of which the assets, they actually help you in terms of reducing your taxes. But they are not aware of that. So for small business, record keeping has been a problem, because most people are just concerned about the top line, which is the revenue. They are not tracking about the profitability.
And so long if they are liquid, so long if the revenue is growing, they're okay.
They're okay. They'll be thinking that, okay, everything is fine. We are making money.
So you raised two important issues, compliance and record keeping. How does compliance actually harm your business? Because someone can say, no. I've been operating this business for 5 years and I've never paid any cent to Zimra. I've never paid any cent to SARS, but I've never paid any cent to ZRA in Zambia. What are the disadvantages or the advantages of being compliant?
Okay. If you are compliant, you find that other companies can easily deal with you.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you are going to grow by dealing with small companies, with individuals only. You need also companies. So other companies, they like to deal with someone who's compliant. Secondly, right now, if you are going to be participating for tenders, you need to be compliant. You need also to have your tax affairs in shape. If you're going to be dealing with government, you need to be in shape. And also another thing is, even if you want to trade, like let's say if you're going to be importing, because right now Zimbabwe are importing most of our stuff.
Yeah, most of the stuff is actually being imported. They're actually a supermarket.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you look at the tax authority, very soon they will be on an assessment of checking those who are importing, what are their tax records are. So you find that if you are importing and your tax affairs are not in shape, you should put your house in order. So
on that one, on the issue of compliance, I just wanted to just add another question. Probably tell us, because we don't want things which are academic here. We want things which are practical.
Yes.
You help a lot of customers. probably you can mention, probably without mentioning their name, just probably mention some of the huge penalties which are given on a company, and how did it also affect the growth of the company itself?
Okay, we have a case. The client, I'll just give a range. They were audited for a period of 3 years, and then they were fined around 1.5 million USD. Why? Because you have been importing, but then you were not remitting adequately in terms of the Zimra side. Then you also have another one. It was fined around 600,000. The issue is you were not paying your VAT as it's supposed to be done. They were actually not fiscalizing. Right now, you find if you're registered for VAT, you need to fiscalize your invoices. So if you are caught on the wrong side, they were caught having manual invoices, of which you're not supposed to be like that. So now you find if Zimra, they're just walking by and they're just checking their records, saying that, do you have a fiscal device? Then they found out, okay, you have it, but you're not using it. So in that case, now what do? They now want to go deeper. It's now
tax audit. Yeah.
Yes. And you find with the tax audit, by law, a company should keep records for 6 years. So they can decide that, okay, we are going to focus on 3 years, but they can even extend to 4 years, 5 years, because the maximum is 6 years.
Okay.
Yes. So you wouldn't want to face such a hefty penalty.
Yeah. What about still on taxes? Do you think our taxes are heavy as developed by being economies? Because some people, they argue that no, I think we're being overtaxed. Is it true? Because at one point I was actually discussing with this other gentleman, and he's from Denmark, and I was also talking to this other guy and his partner from Italy, and they're actually saying that taxes in Italy are more than 50%, and they said in Denmark is 50%, in Italy it can stretch to about 64%. Income tax.
Yeah. That's a lot.
That's a lot. So I'm just comparing with Zim. I think it's around 25%, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Then you're talking about Zambia is around what?
Zambia, it's around 30%.
30%. So what do you also say about us? Probably our argument is still developing economies.
Well, as developing economies, I think it's something that I think of, which the tax rates were supposed to be a bit low, especially in terms of income tax.
Exactly.
For companies that are set up. Because you find that, like, if you look at Zimbabwe, a lot, close to 80% of the companies are actually small to medium enterprises. And you find them, most of them, they are in the informal sector. They don't want to pay tax. So we are actually losing out because people, they feel that 25% is a lot. But maybe if we can have maybe a break whereby we say, okay, for starters, maybe up to this range or up to this certain level of income, they'll be taxed a certain level of percentage, which is low. I'm sure a lot of companies will still pay for their tax.
So you're an expert. We wanted to talk about why business fail. But in this case, we just want to touch on the main point which you have given us, the taxes and compliance.
Yes.
And we want to dwell more on this subject, educating our business people who are in Africa, who are in Zimbabwe, who are in Zambia, who are in South Africa. Because I think most of our tax heads in Africa are almost the same. It's income tax, it's VAT, everywhere. So I think if there are any differences, probably in terms of numbers, but how we do our taxes, most of these countries were colonized by the British and some of them were colonized by the Portuguese. But we use almost the same system in terms of taxing each other. Yes. So we want to dwell more on that. So what I will do is we want to give you time in terms of explaining what is involved in taxes. Someone is joining, wants to invest into Zimbabwe. Someone wants to invest into Zambia. What do they expect in terms of taxes? Or how do they also learn? Because, it's a habit in terms of paying taxes.
Yes.
Probably if you start your business when you already know that VAT is not my money, you're never going to budget VAT as your profit. But when you're now used to say VAT is actually my money, definitely when you start paying that VAT to government, you're feeling like you're actually paying your own pocket money, giving it away to what? To Zimra. So we're going to dwell on that after the break. And as we are hanging out with Andrew Macheka, who is actually the managing partner of M&J Consultants, we're happy to have him here. He's actually citing on where he actually sees most of the businesses in Africa failing. It's because of compliance issues. It's because they lack systems. But today we just want to dwell on one subject. We want to talk about compliance in various forms. Whether if you're paying your money outside the country, are you also in line in terms of the externalization laws of that country? What does the law says? Well, sometimes if you're not compliant, you're not going to be found guilty. And probably we know a lot of companies which have actually closed because they failed to be compliant. So stay tuned. We're actually going to be with you after the break. Thank you so much. Keep on watching. It's Jerry here.
At M&J, our vision is to build timeless businesses that will last from generation to generation. We achieve this through our consultancy and technological solutions, which effectively address legal, HR, sales, accounting, and marketing issues. Our goal is to provide tailor-made services that solve your business challenges and ensure continuous growth.
Welcome back to JailBreak Africa. This is a program where we bring a lot of experts, where we talk about business, we talk about a lot of issues which affect us as Africans, but mostly we're talking about entrepreneurship, we're talking about the challenges which small businesses are facing. And the challenges are either in-house and some are also external. But today, we are just talking about the compliance issues. We're talking about the tax issues, the national social security issues. We're talking about what are you supposed to be doing for you to be operating in various countries. And just before the break, we're talking about the taxes. And but let's say I want to invest into Zambia. I want to invest into South Africa. What should I be looking at before I even start putting in my money in that economy? What should I actually first look at as a small business?
Okay, as a small business, you need to look at the market that you want to venture into.
Exactly.
Yes, you need to look at the regulations associated with the market.
Exactly.
Because right now, yes, there is the issue of electricity blackout in Zambia. Someone is into solar, they want to venture into Zambia. But they have to look at, okay, if I want to venture now into solar, what in terms of the licenses, how was it? In terms of the process, how is the process in terms of setting up the business? So you find that if you look at your market, you look at your regulations, you look at your taxes, how are they in Zambia? Because in Zambia, they're a bit different than Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
You find that if you look at even the labor laws, how are they? Yes.
Yeah. But we want to draw more on the compliance issues.
Okay.
And also, like what you said, the Zambian laws are a bit different as compared to what? To the Zim laws.
Yes.
So I wanted us to dwell too much on, let's say I want to, like we talked about solar. I want to import my solar. What is the duty like in Zambia? Am I supposed to be paying duty or is actually duty free?
You're supposed to pay duty.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because the last actually checked, they actually scrapped that law because of the blackouts.
Okay.
So they said, no, right now you cannot pay duty and they're no longer paying VAT. What we just need is a license to be. And the license, I think, is for 1,000 kwacha, if I'm not mistaken, for you to start importing. So what I'm simply saying is, as a small business, for you not to be affected, yes, you can get into Zambia, you're excited, the business is growing, but boom, when you're now making 1 million kwacha, you just realize that you owe ZRA 2 million. So how can you actually avoid those kind of scenarios? And also, in terms of us as small businesses, like we talked about, they are being overtaxed.
Yes.
But how can we also try to avoid the taxes themselves? How can, like I said, number one, the checks and balances. Before I invest in an economy, which areas should I check in terms of compliance issues? Because in any country, probably there's a social security organization.
Yes, it's there.
The pension funds.
It's there.
There's going to be taxes. There are licenses, like you want to get into mining. Sometimes, imagine after you've invested 50,000, you're doing mining, you end up being caught, and the people are saying, no, you're not supposed to be operating this mine in the first instance. Checking the paperwork. Who owns that mine? Who am I leasing it from? You get what I mean?
Yes.
So this is what I want to talk about. How do you check as a small business? I don't want to get into trouble. Okay. We've identified that it's a real problem. And it's happening in every business that we are not paying enough taxes, or we're not even paying any taxes.
Yeah.
So we want to talk first about how can I actually check to say, and how can I seek advice? And how do I know also that I'm getting the right advice as a small business?
Okay. You need a business advisory to guide you in terms of the process.
Exactly.
So a business advisor is just there to guide and give you support on how you are going to move from one stage to the other. Because right now, if you just go on internet, yes, you can go on internet to do your research, but you also need that advisory guidance, because you find that in terms of the regulations, you wouldn't want to be found on the wrong side of the law. So that's why we offer a business advisory site for small clients, or even medium or large clients who wants to venture into Zambia. That, okay, we can even guide you in terms of the whole process, such that it won't be a problem to your site.
Even in Zimbabwe.
Yes.
Yeah, and we're looking at compliance, even immigration. You have to know the immigration laws before you visit a country. Imagine in any country now, you've actually exhausted your days and you didn't know. Because you failed, or a consultant actually failed to advise you. You'll
be actually arrested for that.
And so, but as a person, because what I noticed with small businesses, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a tax consultant, but probably I'm an engineer. I want to get into a business. How can I actually see that I'm being given proper advice?
All right. So what you can do is do your research. You can research online. Right now, we now have AI. We have Google. Because you find that I've noticed with doctors, you just give them reports, or even besides doctors, farmers, other clients that we have, you give them reports.
They don't even read.
They don't even go through. But you find that if you just want to be on the know-how, just do your mini research. How do you know that the accountant that you have is giving you
You don't have to be an expert, but at least you must know. That's why when you see in HR, there's accounts, there's finance for non-finance training.
Yes, that's true. Because if you look at it, if something is to go wrong with your taxes, Zimbra calls the owner, because you're the one who's registered with Zimbra. They don't call consultants. They don't call the accountant. Yes, because ignorance of law is not an excuse.
Exactly. Okay. So in terms of let us now touch in advising our clients. What are some of the famous taxes which we have under the compliance? Let us talk about taxes first. Then we talk a bit about NEC. We talk a bit about probably NAPSA in Zambia.
Okay.
I don't know what is it called in South Africa. But what are some of the taxes? Because some people, they just think that if I get my tax clearance, I'm not compliant. Or if I just pay my pay, I'm not done. Compliant. So people, they don't know probably about the customs. Tell us.
Okay, you find that for you to get a tax clearance, especially if it's a tax clearance renewal, you need to update your tax returns. And I've noticed that most of the companies or the owners, they are not aware of what is being submitted by tax consultants or by accountants, which is very risky. Because you just call your accountant or your tax consultant, look, my tax clearance is expired. And you say, okay, just pay me $50 or $100. Then you don't care about what has happened, and you're just giving your tax clearance. Because an accountant can actually submit new returns.
Yeah, I can say that again.
Or consulting can submit new returns. Then they can get the tax clearance. But now it's going to backfire one way or the other in the future. Or let's say if they are doing figures, but at least you just need to know the breakdown, what is happening. So in terms of the taxes, that the common ones, we have pay, which
What's
is
that?
submitted on the 10th of every month.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
So
what's pay as you earn?
pay as you earn, that is the tax which is levied on your salary of the employee.
Okay. You're
Yes.
supposed to be withholding.
Yes.
Okay.
So there are tax brackets which guide us in terms of the percentage that is calculated. But for someone who's getting $100 or less, they don't pay tax. But now if you're getting more than $100, depending on the tax bracket that you are, you're supposed to pay tax.
So in Zambia, if it's kwacha, it depends with the amount of kwachas which are supposed to be. I think it's 5,000 kwacha. You don't pay any taxes. If I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
it should be close to. It was
5,000.
4.5 before.
Yeah.
Right now it should be close to 5 somewhere there.
So it's non-taxable.
Non-taxable, yes.
Mm.
Then we have your income tax.
Mm.
Income tax is 25%.
Okay.
Yes, 0.75, including the AIDS levy.
Yeah. What about in Zambia?
In Zambia, it's 30%. But we are saying
South
for the
Africa is
start.
how much?
South Africa, I'm forgetting.
Okay.
Yes, but if you look at for Zambia, especially if you're registered for the first time, you qualify for 10 over
10 over tax, yeah.
Yes, which is
They've
4%.
separated the income
Yes.
tax and 10 over tax. Okay.
Yes, which is 4% of the annual.
It's more like the presumptive tax in Zimbabwe.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then here in Zim, you find these income tax, even in Zambia, they're submitted quarterly. These are the QPDs, quarterly
Then
payment
you
dates.
sent the final return.
Final return, yes, which will be due on the 30th of April
Okay.
of every year.
So how, in terms of probably when we're checking, even we talked about the taxes, because compliance are not only taxes.
Yes.
Let's now talk about probably the other compliance issues which have got nothing to do with taxes, like having our city, our council license. Because do you know where I've got a problem with our African businesses? We are only compliant when we are now in trouble.
Yes.
For example, when city council comes in, they close your shop. That's when you rush and you pay. Then you now know that this license can make my shop closed.
Yeah.
When you're sued by NEC, when your employee actually goes to NEC, but it's actually compulsory probably for you to be your industry to be registering with NEC or with NASA. But you only go there whilst you've actually gotten into what? Into a challenge.
Trouble. Yeah.
But when I notice some of these foreign-owned businesses, or let me actually be blunt, white-owned businesses, you notice that they don't open doors without all the certificates which are required under that business.
Yeah.
What's your comment on that?
Yeah, you find that they actually studied the market, understood that, okay, for me to operate very well, I just need to make sure everything is in order. Because you don't want shortcuts. You don't want to be, imagine you have your big client coming in and then council just comes in and close the door.
Probably that was going to be our best deal of the year.
It was going to be a breakthrough. So it's important just to make sure that we are just compliant in terms of all the areas that affect our business.
Because don't you also think that getting a permit is compliant?
Yes, it is. Because sometimes you have company cars, you're moving around, but then you'll be affected because of ZBC license.
Exactly. Imagine
Yeah.
you are forced to now pay $30 on spot, but how much is it?
Yes. And maybe you have an agent meeting.
Exactly. And they are stopped for 2-3 hours.
Yes. Because of that.
Okay.
Yeah. So compliance, it needs to be looked at as a whole. Mainly, if you look at it right now in Zim, we only focus with taxes only. But then NASA, yes, to a lesser extent.
The lesser extent, people are not scared about
NASA, yes, and then NEC, yes.
Yes, that one they actually told to go hang.
Yes.
Yeah. So in terms of probably identifying, let's say you're getting a customer or a client, one of your clients comes to you, they say probably you're facing challenges with Zimra. How do you actually identify to say this client has got problems? And how do you do the compliance? Can I call it compliance audit? What do you call it? Or how do you actually do it?
All right. It's more like a compliance audit and tax health check. Because if a client comes in, I try to understand the business. So it's more like I'm going to give business advisory to the client. That, okay, I want to understand
We are in manufacturing because
Yes.
there are laws which are in
There
manufacturing.
are laws which are in manufacturing. Yes. I also want to understand how this company started, their process flow.
Mhm.
Yes. I want to understand even in terms of like their structure of the company, the shareholders,
Shareholding,
yes,
directorship.
yes.
So there's going to be shareholders tax, there's going to be dividend, there's going to be directors tax.
Yes,
Mhm.
the dividends.
Dividends.
So sometimes you find that there are clients who are buying share of companies,
Mhm.
but then because when they bought the share of company, the consultant whom they got that company from didn't change the shareholding structure.
Is it really happening?
Yes, it's happening. We have clients. I remember there's this client who owned about 20 trucks.
Uh-huh.
Lucky enough, the shareholders were close. Were actually around, but he bought that company. It's been 10 years. But the good thing was that they were in good books. So in terms of changing the shareholding, it was easy. Imagine you are owning 20 trucks, but you're not the owner of that company. You're just a director. So most of the clients, they don't know even the distinction between a director and a shareholder. So I actually start from the advisory side. We look at how's the company because we need to advise them because they might be running a company as a director.
Which is not the what was the implication, especially on the client with 20? I'm owning 20. What's the implication? I'm owning my 20 vehicles and I'm just the director, but I didn't change the shareholding.
Imagine the owner of the company decides that, okay, I just want to come back to my company.
They'll justify you
And they just said, look, I've come. This is my company.
and they're fired.
You go to courts, you won't
You
win.
will never win it.
You never win.
Okay.
Yes. Then you lose all the 20 trucks.
So it's fascinating how things are happening in most of these companies.
Yes.
What about probably people, they think that if a company grows, the brand is now well known, they think that everything is in order in terms of compliance. Is it true?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. It's happening. I've actually have a certain client who have got many branches, but then they will think that they have reached it. They are going far. But then you find that if you're going to go down into the figures, you look at that. No, this is not how they are performing. They're actually performing very low. Other branches are actually making loss.
Making a lot of losses, yeah.
And then there are others who are actually making profit. They know you're advising, look, best you have 8 branches. Why are these 3 branches still opened? They're still making losses, and look, it's been operating for close to 3 years now. So you need to take a strict measure on this one.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Mr. Macheka. What would be your parting shot to a businessman who is operating in Africa, who also wants to grow? Because our intention to have this kind of programs is to educate these entrepreneurs so that they can also, we can have an opportunity to compete on a global stage. Because I don't believe only that you only have the likes of Patrice Motsepe, the likes of, I think it's Dr. Patrice Motsepe, the likes of Dr. Cyril Ramaphosa, the likes of probably Dr. Strive Masiwa. They're the only billionaires, Dangote, who are going to be coming out of Africa. I believe that we can actually produce plenty of billionaires because we are resourced. So what's your parting shot in terms of the business person? How they should treat their business in terms of putting up long-term plans, like what you're saying, not to treat them like deals. You just say big deal, which I'm going to be getting my money, buy my house, buy my car, then it's done. Okay.
There should be a systematic way of doing things. We need to put procedures, policies in place. There should be a succession plan because you find that most of the owners, they're just operating on their own. If that person dies or is no longer there, something happens. Or if you look at, yes, I'm actually there, I'm the person who brings deals. Everything is centered on that person.
Exactly.
So there should be systems such that there's a succession plan. What happens? Ask yourself, what happens if I'm no longer there?
If I'm die today, yeah.
Do I want this business to die? Business is a going concern, and it should go for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Yes. So we need to put systems in place. Look at also even things like your trust and manage it effectively.
Or risk assessment.
Risk assessment, yes. And make sure that in terms of the taxes, you're also involved as a business owner. Do your research in whatever things that you want to do. so that you just have a basic understanding of how things are going.
Ah.
Then in someone is giving you advice, at least you'll be on the same level.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Macheka, for coming. We really appreciate your time and for taking this time to come to our program and share with us the nuggets you're actually giving to the audience and to our viewers. We really appreciate you and thank you so much. So as you can hear, guys, it's all about compliance. Remember to be compliant. When we're saying compliance, we're not only talking about taxes. We're talking about all these other factors which can actually affect your business negatively. So we're saying in whatever country which you're operating in whatever community, some compliance issues have got nothing to do with the country laws. Sometimes they're actually community laws. So know what you're doing, probably where you're going to be disposing your chemicals. The headman of that area doesn't allow that. It's a compliance issue. And you need to be knowing all this information. Don't put your head in the sand. You as the company owner, you must also take time to get into seminars, listen to these kind of programs, educate yourself, just the basics. We're not saying be a professional. We know that you're a medical doctor. We know that you are being operational in terms of being a medical doctor, but just learn a bit of financing. Because one day you wake up, you are now the MD of a hospital. You are now the MD of a clinic. It now needs you to know figures. Just to know a bit about your business, be compliant, and thank you so much, guys, for watching. We really appreciate you. Keep on watching, keep subscribing. Also, click that bell to also remind you when we air another program. So thank you for the support. We really appreciate you, Africans. Let us keep on hustling. Africa is going to be rich. It's going to be the best continent in terms of the economy. Thank you so much. Until next time, it's Jerry Moya Zungu out.
Are you failing to make sales? Or do you have a sales team that is failing to meet their targets? The Chartered Vendor Sales Institute is offering intensive 12-week sales training program designed to offer your sales team with efficient sales skills. The program will include weekly sessions, 2 lecturers, practical exercises, and theory assignments. Through this Sales Institute's training, salespeople will be learning fundamental sales principles from prospecting, follow-up, closing, and negotiation. The grading system is mainly focused on practical exercises, accounting for 70% of your grading mark. Participants also undertake a capstone project to apply to real-life scenarios of what they would be learning, and they stand a chance to be certified by the Chartered Vendor. The Chartered Vendor Sales Institute is open for individuals and companies, and if you or your team members need to be part of this, you can get in touch on the numbers showing on the screen.